Let's get that resolved. Yeah, I hear y'all. Let's see. Let's get this resolved. Am I back? Can y'all hear me now? I have no idea. So someone in the Discord hit me up with a confirmation. I'm back. Adam at Amazon says I am back. All right, we did it. All right, in that case, hello again. Welcome to my presentation. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to be talking about Vue JS, which is this lovely little JavaScript framework that I'm excited to introduce. But as well, we're going to be talking about some more general principles that will help you in your learning journey as you progress as a technician. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the joy of using other people's work. Because as much as I like writing code, I also really like not writing code. So we're going to take a really close look at when and how we can leverage that to make our lives easier. Sound good? Cool. Well, first, a little bit of a plug. Hello, what's up, sunhacks? My name is Adam. I am coming to you all the way from the glamorous state of Virginia. So I understand it's late in the evening in Arizona, but it is well past midnight over here. I'm representing the College of William and Mary, and more specifically, our hackathon is called Cypher. If you're ever on the East Coast, check it out. We will feed you well. Also, shout out to some other hackathons of which we are friends. But yeah, enough about me. Let's talk about Vue. So for this presentation, I've marked it as intermediate because there is a little bit of background knowledge that may come in handy. It might help to know a smidge about HTML or a smidge about programming concepts in any language. Although today we're using JavaScript, JS, duh. But if you don't know anything, that's totally fine. If you're ever unsure of anything that goes on this screen, please ask. I'm watching the Discord on my other monitor. We're all here to learn. So literally, hit me up. Sound good? Cool. So Vue JS is a front-end web framework. Front-end web meaning that we are making things happen in web browsers. And a framework means anything that makes annoying code tasks easier. Really, it's that vague of a term, but as we'll see, it's also going to be one of our more important terms. So keep that in mind. It's a framework. Now, there are a lot of front-end web frameworks out there today. There's a bunch of logos, which you may or may not recognize. Some of them I don't even recognize, and I made the slide. And when you look at that, I'm sure we've all felt super intimidated. Like new tech just pops up all the time, like mushrooms after the rain. So when something pops up, how do I evaluate it? How do I know whether I need this or not? How do I even figure out what it does? It's confusing. It's kind of a mess. Welcome to software development. And we can kind of take a stab at unraveling all of this confusion by asking one question, namely, what problem does it solve? What problem does it solve? And in this case, with Vue.js and our frameworks, the word framework actually holds the key to answering that question, because here it's anything that makes annoying code tasks easier, right? So if we figure out what tasks are annoying, then that becomes our clue into what the framework might help us do. Make sense? So let's take a look at things that I hate doing. These are my most annoying code tasks. I really hate doing these. They're so bad. And one of them is when I have a variable in my JavaScript code and I need an HTML element in my HTML file to be consistent with it. So like if I've got this variable Adam's cool number and it equals 5, and then I want to display that on the page, it might be fine once, but then anytime I change this variable in my code, I also have to remember to update my HTML on the other side so that it's consistent. And I have to do that every single time I update this variable. Can y'all see how much that might annoy me? Because it really does annoy me. And here's the thing, it gets worse. If I have an input text field that needs to be consistent with a variable, now the user can just go in and type a new number. And I have to know that when the user changes that number, I've also got to have it consistent in my code as well. So now we've got not just a one-way consistency issue, we've got a two-way consistency issue. And that's doubly complicated. I don't like that. Here's another thing I hate doing. It's only showing an element if something is true, or if it's false, I want to hide it. So like I could have a Boolean variable like this, but I still have to keep track of those changes very meticulously. And I have to make sure that every time it's changing, I'm going to show the element if it's true, hide it if it's false for every single element that depends on this variable or that needs to be hooked up to this variable. That sounds annoying. And lastly, we've got the task of showing an element for each thing in a list. So for example, if I have my cool list here of A, B, and C, and I want to convert this into a list of, or like a consecutive repeated element where each list item corresponds to an element, then to construct this, I actually have to do a lot of really annoying manipulation in JavaScript and basically manually construct my HTML. So here, because it's a simple example, the code isn't that long, but it's still pretty ugly. And believe me, if you want to get any more complex, it gets bad. So we've got a really long laundry list now of things that are really annoying. And so my point in showing you all of this is to get the gears turning and be like, these are annoying tasks. Maybe there's something out there that could help me do these. Wink, wink, hint, hint. But do you see this pattern? The overall theme I'm trying to communicate here is that I really hate keeping my HTML in sync with variables in my JavaScript code that could constantly be changing and require updates. Doing it manually is repetitive. It's super error prone. It's going to be super easy for me to change a variable and forget to update my HTML to be consistent with that. And on top of that, it's just plain annoying. It's something that is blocking me from working on the actually interesting parts of my code. And I just don't want to do it, you know? So this right here is one of our biggest cues. Remember, by knowing what tasks are annoying, we can predict what a framework might help us do. So I'm done being subtle, but this is all our cue to use other people's work. And you're going to see this phrase pop up a lot more because after all, this is the joy of using other people's work. So remember this. We're going to use other people's work. Got it? So now, funny how things work. In a major coincidence, all of the annoying tasks that I presented are things that Vue is really, really good at. So let's just start diving into Vue. And as an important note, I'm using Vue 3. Vue 3 is pretty new. And right now it is in competition or in parallel with Vue 2. So a lot of the things that you will see online deal with Vue 2 just because it's been around for longer. If you decide to further your Vue journey, then make sure that you're checking whether you're on Vue 2 or Vue 3 because there are some differences. But for today, Vue 3, we're going new, we're going modern. And this is how you use it. This is all. You just take the JavaScript file, one single JavaScript file, and just put it in your HTML right next to where you'd put all your other JavaScript. So you can either download the file and have it locally, or you can link to it elsewhere. So this is what the Vue website looks like. And they provide you with this handy dandy URL that you can just grab the single JavaScript file from. Easy. Now, for those of y'all who might already be familiar with Angular and React, I'm going to name names. I don't really like either one of them. And a big reason is because they have really annoying installation procedures. You've actually got to fire up your terminal and make sure that this is installed properly. And it's kind of a lot compared to just adding one line of code to your HTML and being done. So yeah, Vue, it's easy. I promise. And look at that. That looks pretty easy too. This is the core of how we're going to be using Vue today. It starts off with just a regular old JavaScript object. And we're going to pimp out this JavaScript object with all of our data and behavior that we want to have. And that together is going to comprise our app, which is a Vue word for the part of the HTML that we want Vue to operate on or have control over. So it starts with this, just empty brackets. That's JavaScript for empty object that we can fill up with whatever goodies we like. And then we do a little bit more. We do Vue.createApp, which basically takes this object that we made on the previous slide and feeds it into Vue and tells Vue, okay, time to start using this as my app. Then we do mount. And that tells us what HTML element do we want to operate on. So over here on the right, I've got my HTML. And so by doing this and saying, I want to mount app, then anything that we put in our Vue app over here in the code is going to apply and operate over this HTML element. Sound good? By the way, I have no view of how the audience is feeling besides the Discord. So please do speak up if I'm going too fast, if there's anything I can clarify. I'm watching, I'm listening. Don't be shy. But yeah, remember this slide? Remember me complaining about how much I hate updating my elements to be consistent with JavaScript variables? What's the solution? We're going to use other people's work. Remember I told you we're going to be saying that a lot today? So in order to use other people's work to do this annoying task, here's what the view looks like. So let's break it down. We're adding a new function to our, yes, Blizz, this is the workshop channel. So we're adding a function to our app. It's called data because it has data. And specifically, it's storing key value pairs of data. So here, for example, I've got Adam's cool number. It's mine. And it is 5. So this is our key. This is our value. Or in other words, this is our data, and this is our name for the data. Cool. And then because we've put this key value pair into our data, it actually magically becomes available to us in the HTML. So all I have to do is just use these double curly brackets, or it's called mustache syntax. It's kind of funny. And then inside that, I'm just going to put Adam's cool number, the same exact name that we put over here in our code. And then it's just going to work like you expect it to. It's just going to magically grab this value and insert it into our code. Don't believe me? We're going to do it live. So here we go. I'm going to try some live coding, and y'all know this don't always go well, but we're going to take our chances here. So I'm going to type exactly what I had on that slide. We're going to make our data function, and we're going to start giving our key value pairs. So Austin from Sunhacks is very kindly assisting me with the workshop today. So we're going to do Austin's cool number. And for Austin's cool number, I'm feeling 17. I'm getting like 17 vibes from Austin. So I'm going to make his cool number 17. Throw a semicolon in there because it's JavaScript. So now if I go into our app, we've already done all the work of creating it and mounting it. Then all I got to do is let's make an empty paragraph. And I'm going to use that mustache syntax with the double curly braces. And then all I got to do is type Austin's cool number. And look at that. 17, look at that right there on the page. It automatically knows to take that mustache syntax and replace it with whatever we've got in our code. So I can change it and make this like, I don't know, this giant number. That's an even cooler number. Austin just says 17 is a cool number, but this is even cooler. And look at that. As simple as that, we just got it to show up on the page. Nice. That's Vue. So let's take it a step further with this data syncing theme. And now let's think about how it goes when we need to do two-way with the example of user inputs. So like, for example, if I've got this text box right here and I enter a number, then I'd like that to be reflected and usable in my code as well. Once again, the theme is, you saw it coming, use other people's work. And in order to use other people's work, this is how Vue does it. We've got the same data as before. So in our JavaScript, from the perspective of our code, we actually have the exact same situation, just one piece of data that we need to keep track of. It's just that now we have another thing tied up to it. We've got this input. And there's this new thing called vModel, where once again, it's just being hooked up to that same name that we used before, Adam's cool number. And vModel is what's used to tie a user input to a Vue variable. So looking at this syntax and knowing what you know from the demo I did before, I'd like y'all to make a prediction. What do you think will show up in my text box at the start? And what do you think will happen if I type something different into the box? So if I go here and I backspace out the 5 and I type some other number, what do you think is going to happen? I will give y'all a little bit to ponder it, maybe 45 seconds. Feel free to pop your answers in workshop questions or just say them out loud to your shoulder partner or whoever you're watching with. I've got my crab as my shoulder partner today. And yeah, give that a ponder. To answer your question, Blizz, I believe, yeah, I hope this is recorded, although that's a question for the sunhacks staff. So I'll let Austin answer that, but I do have the slides saved as a PDF, so at the very least, I can send you those whenever. But yeah, give a little time to ponder. All right, I'm bored. Let's move on. Let's try doing just what I showed y'all and see how it works out. So I'm going to add my input, and I'm going to use vModel, and I'm going to hook it up to that exact same Austin's cool number as before. And then if you guessed that this input is automatically going to show up with Austin's cool number already filled out in it, then that's exactly what happened. Look at that. So we know that we're able to grab our data from the code and bring it over to our HTML. But here's the real test. Can we go the other way? Look at that. Whenever I type it into this input box, the value actually transfers over into my code. So now Austin's cool number is whatever I just typed. And our proof is because this paragraph text over here is also tied up to that same piece of data. So whenever it changes, this paragraph is going to change as well. So just like that, I have made sure that this one piece of data, even though it's existing in 3 different places, this input box, this paragraph, and inside my code, I've ensured that they will always stay in sync. They will always be the same value. Isn't that easy? Think about if we had to do this manually. It would be so difficult. So yeah, here's my slide just showing you the 3 different places that we have ensured that Adam's cool number will be the same everywhere. And if you were like me, when I was first learning Vue and I looked at this, I was like, hang on, this kind of feels a little too good to be true. Like, I'd made a variable called Adam's cool number in my JavaScript, but I never really created a counterpart in the HTML. So how come it just like automatically transfers over? How come I get to use it here, even though I only defined it here? And the answer is that Vue just did that for us. It just came as default behavior out of the box. A lot of frameworks pull a lot of magic like this, and very often it can honestly feel too good to be true. But my suggestion is to just roll with it. Frameworks do take a lot of the heavy lifting off of us, and in return, they give us some pretty syntactically sugary syntaxes to use. So just go with it. Trust it. It's there for you, so use it. Now let's explore methods. Variables are to functions as data is to methods, and we can put whatever methods or whatever functions we like into our app as well. And so here I've created a method. It's called increment. And what it does is it takes Adam's cool number and gives it an increment. So it adds 1. And then I've got this button. And look at this syntax. V on click equals increment. So I'm going to give it a little pause again here. And I want you to eyeball this syntax and think about what it does. What do you think is going to happen when I click this button? So I'm actually going to pause share and type this all out into our little live coding demo. And while I'm paused, I want you to ponder, what do you think is going to happen? Think about it. And then when I'm done typing, see if you were right. And I am a slow typer, so y'all got time. Excuse me. Equals, what do I call this, increment? It's so much harder because I'm typing under pressure too. All right, keep thinking. I'm gonna get a drink of water. That's how you know it's live. All right, y'all have had enough time. Here it is. I've just added our new method, and I've created our button with that exact mystery syntax that I showed y'all earlier. And so well, first of all, let's actually set our cool number to something a little smaller, a little simpler, just for demonstration's sake. It is now 6. And if you are predicting that clicking this button is going to cause it to increment to 7, you were right. And to 8, and to 9, and to 10. Would you look at that? We've got a button that does things. How cool is that? Let's unpack this syntax a little bit more, where we have a method, excuse me, that now updates the data. So this .AtomsCoolNumber is this piece of data right here. And our methods can interact with and change that data. And whenever you change that data, it still changes it everywhere. So whenever I call this method, I'm changing AtomsCoolNumber in my code. I'm changing it in both places in our HTML, and everything stays consistent. Then all I need to do is hook up my button to the method. So to that, I use this syntax called VOnClick, and I just put, excuse me, increment into there. And just like that, we have hooked up our button to the method. Whenever we click it, this method is going to get called. Sound good? Here's another thing that I hate doing. You should be noticing a theme here. This is only showing an element if something is true and hiding it if it's false. I really hate doing this, but luckily instead I can, you guessed it, use other people's work. And in this case, the view that lets us do this is looking like this. It's this little code in purple. So once again, practice eyeballing the syntax and guessing what it does. And specifically, I'd like you to ponder, at the start, will this purple element be visible or invisible? And then how do I control it? How do I make it visible? And how do I make it invisible again? So once again, ponder that, and I'm going to type it out in our live coding demo. And then once we're done, you can see if you were right. Right. Surprise. Come on, update. All right, almost ready, and it reloaded. Ready. All right, so here we are. I've just loaded us up with that code that I introduced on the previous slide. And so right now, even though we see this paragraph in our code, I don't see anything on the page, do y'all? I see nothing. And so if you predicted that we were going to see nothing on the page to begin with and that it would be invisible, then congratulations, you're right. And here's how we're going to get it to show up. The condition to get this show up is Austin's cool number equals 8. So right now it's 5. So how do I get it to equal 8? Well, lucky for us, we have this increment button. So I'm going to bump it up to 6, still nothing. Bump it up to 7, still nothing. But wait for it. Look at that. It now equals 8. The condition is satisfied, and our surprise pops up. And then watch this. If I increment it one more time and Austin's cool number is now 9, it's actually going to go away because this condition is no longer true. So no matter how our data changes, this condition will always be checked and it'll just work perfectly. Is that making sense to y'all? VIF tells this element to exist only when this variable over here in our data equals 8. This is still the same Adam's cool number that's being referenced in all other places in both our JavaScript and HTML. It's still that same value being referenced. And that's so why when I changed Adam's cool number with the input and with our button, it affected this too. All of the changes apply everywhere you use the same names. So yeah, Vue is consistent like that. So now let's tackle this really hard task that I introduced at the very end of my list of things that I hate doing, which is looping, showing an element for each thing in a list. If I've got 3 things in this list, I want 3 p tags. So this is super annoying, but this should not be a surprise at this point. We're going to use other people's work. And in this case, the view that lets us do this is a for loop. So here I've got some new code. It's in green. And once again, I'd like you to eyeball it and then just guess. What do you think is going to happen? And what is this green line going to turn into on that final page? And I'll give you a hint. It's not just one thing, it's multiple things. So think about what you think this is going to turn into and ponder that as once again, I'm going to type this out and we're going to see. Ooh, typing under pressure. Please work. You know, all of my code has been suspiciously functioning today. And oh, we're going to keep that streak going, y'all, because I just got it working. So let's check it out in the live. So here we've got Cecilia's cool list. Cecilia is another sunhacks organizer. Hi, Cecilia. And in Cecilia's cool list, I have inserted this list of words. Peanut butter is an adorable cat. By the way, have y'all met Peanut Butter? Peanut Butter is a cat. Peanut Butter is on the Sunhacks website, and I am in love with Peanut Butter. So here's my tribute to the cat, is a list of words. And then Cecilia's cool list is referenced over here in our HTML. And so we've got for each thing in Cecilia's cool list, just give me that thing. And so if you predicted that we were going to get one paragraph text for each thing in the list, then congratulations, you were exactly right. For each word in this list, we've generated a paragraph text with that thing inside of it. So because there's 6 things in our list, this paragraph text, this one single line of code has actually made 6 copies of itself, one right after the other. And by the way, this isn't in my slides, but I figure I'll mention it, is that this is just a regular HTML element. So you can actually put extra text in here and it'll also get duplicated or shown or hidden or any of the other great Vue features that we've already seen. So I could say, add a smiley face to the end of this paragraph text. And now we've got a smiley face after every word in our list. Isn't that nice? This is how I feel when I look at peanut butter. So yeah, that's for loops. And let's take a closer deep dive into that code where the v-for that I've got over here is Vue's way of telling the p tag to loop over each thing in Adam's cool list, as I've got here in my code, and then make a copy of itself for each loop. And then each loop, we've got this variable here, this new name that I've introduced. I've just chosen thing. And then each loop thing becomes the next item in the list. So in this example, the first time thing is A, then thing is B, then thing is C, and thing just becomes a variable that we can reference using our mustache syntax, just like any other variable. So to bring it home, looking at our example over here, same deal. For thing in Cecilia's cool list, at first, thing is peanut, then thing is butter, then thing is. Get the pattern? Cool. So that was about as far as I want to take it with regards to syntax. It can get a little wilder, can get a little crazier, but for now, that's all I want to show y'all, because even though we've got just a few basic building blocks, we can actually put it all together to make something really cool. So let's put what we know together and build this. It's a to-do list where I can type something into this input and then click the add button, and it's actually going to add it to our list over here. So I want you to think about this and just think, what of the Vue features that I've introduced would come in handy here? What might we want to use? Here's a recap of what we've gone over. And then I'm going to get the code just barely started. And once I'm done, I will come back and we will work on it. So while I'm typing, once again, think about it. Live typing. All right. I hope you've had enough time to think, because just like that, I have created our skeleton code. And look at that. I've got our HTML elements, but right now everything is hard coded. So these don't actually do anything. Like I'm clicking on this button and nothing's happening. And these list items as well are literally just hard coded. And then we've got the same app as before, same everything, except I've just cleared out all of the Austin and Cecilia stuff and left us with a blank spot for our data and a blank spot for our methods. So let's see, where do I want to start with this? And I say, let's actually start with the list itself. This is a to-do list after all. And so I know I'm going to need to store the items of my to-do list somewhere in my code. And so if you hear that and you think, oh, that sounds like data, then you're right, we need data. So let's make a to-do list and let's seed it with some, I don't know, some random sample data just to get us started for illustration. So I've just stored some data with my Vue app, and this is accessible now to my HTML. Problem is, I'm not referencing this name to-do list anywhere, so there's nothing tying this specific list to our HTML. So what I'm going to do here is remember my goal here is to make copies of this li, this list element. And I want one li for each thing in my to-do list. And so if you're thinking, that sounds a lot like v4, then you're right. Remember, using v4, we actually only need one element because it's going to make copies of itself. We're going to do our v4. And then let's see. Thing in to-do list. Then remember that this name that I put here, thing, becomes available to us as a variable that goes through each value in our list. So all I got to do is use our mustache syntax. Hey, that's another thing we learned today. I'm going to use my mustache syntax and go like thing. And would you look at that? Our 3 things I love sunhacks pop up in our list. Nice. So already we're really close to getting this app to work, guys. We're really close. I'm super pumped. Now we need to figure out how are we going to get it so that I can type something in here, click add, and then actually have it added to the list. And my first thought is that I need to be able to grab whatever's in here and have it accessible in my code. So to me, that sounds like I actually need to store more data. Not only do I need to store the list, but I also need to store the user input. And let's start it out as just, I don't know, an empty string. Cool. So now whenever I type into this input box, this value is going to be reflected in my code. And I can actually prove it to you by throwing in another mustache syntax. And let's say it's user input. So now our user input is also going to appear in every single list item. So when I do this, oh, that didn't work. Oh, I know why. Duh. It's because I didn't do anything to hook up this input to the user input. So let's do that. To do my binding of user input to Vue data, I'm going to use that v model syntax that I showed y'all before. And I'm just going to put in user input. And now, cross your fingers, nothing ever works live. Look at that. Our user input is being reflected in our code now. And it's our proof is that we're able to access it through our mustache syntax. Nice. So let's remove that for now because that's a little silly. And now we've got this, which is guaranteed to have whatever the user actually input for us. It is guaranteed to always be correct for us to use in our code. So we can just trust this variable now, user input, and let's come up with a way to add it to our list. To me, that sounds like we want a method because we want something to happen when we click this button, right? So let's start by adding our method and let's call it add to list. And this is going to take an argument of new. Actually, no, it's not going to take an argument. Never mind. Ignore me. So what do we need to do in our add to list method? I'm going to write it out in English first, just to guide our thinking. We need to take whatever's in the Vue user input variable up top and put that into the to-do list. Is that making sense to y'all? Cool. So we can tackle these one at a time where we can make a variable of like whatever's in the Vue user input variable. And how do we grab it? It's simple. We just do this dot user input. Just like that, you can grab it and you are guaranteed that this will reflect what is in here and what is in here. Nice. And then all we got to do is take our new variable, this very long one, and put it into our to-do list. So once again, to reference our data inside a method, all we got to do is this dot to-do list. And I believe to add to a list in JavaScript, you do push. Watch me be wrong. I know I'm going to be wrong, but we're going to see. Then all we got to do is push our whatever's in the Vue user input variable. I really played myself by making this variable name very long. But look at that. This is a method that actually literally modifies this list by adding a new thing. So because Vue is really great at keeping everything in sync, whenever we modify our list in the code, we can expect that our thing that's tied up to that piece of data is also going to update. So now I think we're ready, except we're not. I'm clicking on this button and nothing's happening. Why is that? Because look at this. We never tied up that button and we never told it to tie itself to our new method. So what do we use? We're going to use v_on_click, which tells Vue, when I click this button, what do I want to happen? I want add to list to happen. And now I think we're ready. Do you think we're ready? I think we're ready. Does it work? Moment of truth. Look at that. It's on our list. Look at that. I can add whatever I want and it's on our list. We did it. We made a to-do list. Hey, let's go. So just to recap what's going on here, because there's a lot of moving parts. We have our input. We have our user input that is tied up to this variable up top in our data. Then we have our button, which is tied up to this method over here. This method interacts with both of our pieces of data. It interacts with both the user input piece of data, which remember is tied up to our input, and it's tied up to our actual to-do list data. And it takes this and adds it to this. Then what else is tied up to our to-do list? Our actual HTML list. Where now, because this list is changing in our code, our list in our HTML will also update based on whatever's in the list. So by doing that, we have our flow from here to here to here. All of the parts are connected and it just works. Vue is great like that. It's really slick. And can you imagine if we had to do all of that manually and had to think about, oh, our data is changing here, so we got to change it over here and here, here, here. That would be so annoying. And I guarantee you, I would have made like 2,000 mistakes in the process of coding it live. So look at that. By using other people's work, we just made a whole app in like this much code. This is like surprisingly not a lot of code. I was actually shocked when I wrote it out for the first time and I was like, really, that's it? And here are all the concepts we use. We used data and methods. We used the double curly braces or the mustache syntax. We used vModel, v_on_click, and v_for. vIf was the red herring. We didn't use that, but we used most of the other things that we learned today. How about that? So now I want to talk about taking it further because I only showed you the very, very basics of how to use Vue. So what other features might you logically expect from something like this, where, as you've seen, our theme is kind of keeping things in sync between our HTML and our JavaScript? If you can figure out this skill, then it'll help you figure out when you can keep using other people's work, even if you've never seen it before. So even if you've never used Vue before, you can try to predict or anticipate what other tools Vue might give you. For example, we have vIf. I showed you that. But when we program, we often do if else. So wouldn't it be handy if Vue gave us an else to go along with our vIf? And so let's check the website. Look at that. There's a VLs. So just by using a little bit of logic and making a lucky guess, because I'll be honest, it was a guess, but we kind of expect certain tools to be available to us as programmers. And by having a little bit of a honed sense of those expectations, you can actually anticipate what a framework might give you. Sound good? So now, that is all the Vue I am showing you today, but it is all in your hands. So if you'd like to go further, then here's what I invite you to do. Try to create your own feature for our to-do list and just imagine. You don't need to actually write code, but just think about it. Imagine how you might implement it. And then here's how you can use the skill that I just showed you on the previous slide. If you need tools that I haven't shown you yet, then predict what Vue might give you. Predict, oh, wouldn't it be nice if Vue had this? And then look it up. Go to the website. Vue actually has really good documentation. And look up whether or not it actually exists or not. Chances are you'll probably be pretty close. So if you'd like some suggestions, here are some suggestions. They will be available in the slides that I will somehow have distributed to y'all. But yeah, we learned a lot of Vue today. We actually learned a lot of Vue today, but more broadly, let's take stock of what we've learned about learning. We learned what a framework is. Remember, it is anything that helps us solve annoying tasks. We learned how to quickly get the gist of what new technology does by asking, what problem does it solve? And going from there. We learned both how to identify tasks that are super annoying, where we don't want to do it ourselves. And then we learned the magic rule. You've been saying it this entire hour. Use other people's work and recognize when other people's work can help us. We also took a stab at predicting what features unfamiliar tech might have and predicting, even if we haven't seen it before, what tools we might have in our toolbox. And we also learned how to eyeball unfamiliar syntax and taking an educated guess at what it does. So all of these skills are going to be really valuable to you as you begin to learn more and more tech. Like, this industry just keeps on coming up with the next best thing, and it's really hard to keep up. But as you get better at these, then you'll find that your skill in picking things up will get better and better, and you can learn anything. So going back to the beginning, we were worrying about how many different front-end frameworks there were, but now you have an idea of what problem they solve or what they might help you do, and how you might go about tackling them. So yeah, I'd say we're in a pretty good place. So we have 6 minutes left in our time. Let's use the rest of our hour as question and answer. I'll hang out for the rest of the hour in case y'all want to ask me something, or you can hit me up anytime. Here's my Discord. I will figure out some way of getting these slides to y'all. I'm not sure how. I just kind of wrote this and assumed it would happen, but we'll figure it out. These slides will be available to you somehow. But yeah, feel free to leave. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I will stick around for 6 more minutes, or however long, honestly, to answer questions live. If you'd like me to, just pop them in the workshop questions channel and I will answer. Or if not, then have a nice rest of y'all's evening. Woo. Krabby. Krabby has been a very faithful companion on my Vue journey. He's no peanut butter, though. Yeah, let me just, honestly, I have it right here. Let me see if I can just like up. And I don't think it's too big of a file either. So with luck, I don't have Nitro because I'm cheap, but cross your fingers. Oh, 370 kilobytes. Oh, easy. Here are the slides from today's Vue.js talk. And voila, they are in general. Austin or anybody else, if you'd like me to post them anywhere else, or if there's a more appropriate place, feel free to let me know. Or there's a place you'd rather me post this, please let me know. Cool. Oh no, we do not have questions. Any questions on the YouTube? I know this is being streamed on YouTube, so I want to double check to make sure that I'm not missing any of the chatter going on over there. Oh, that's me. I'm on the screen. Oh, just a bunch of people complaining about no sound. I hope you were able to hear me for the rest of that. Okay. Want more water. Yeah, I should probably apologize too for bashing Angular and React during my presentation. Like I've used both. I actually use Angular at my job right now. And I mean, they're fine. One of my biggest weaknesses is that once I learn how to do something one way, that becomes like my standard. And so the hardest part about Angular and React for me is actually unlearning Vue, because I'm like, oh, this is similar to Vue, and then it's not. And I'm like, this is not something that I like. I dislike this. So that's just me. I am so random. I can't believe I just said that. I'm just kidding. So yeah. 2 more minutes. Oh, something happened. Yeah, Cecilia, I will get you a link right now. Also, not to toot my own horn, but I just wrote all that code live and it worked. Like that never happens. I'm very pleased with myself. Y'all try typing under pressure. It ain't fun. Getting y'all a live link. Posted link for my Vue talk for you. "60 seconds. Any last questions?" Copy. Send it to Cecilia. Cool then. Oh, why was 5 my cool number? I don't know. I just vibe with 5. Like I have 5 fingers. I also have 5 toes on each hand, not total. That would be kind of weird. So a total of 20. I should have done 3. You know, 3 is a magic number. We all watch Schoolhouse Rock. Hey, thanks from Adam at State Farm and Scarce. I wonder if Scarce's name is also Adam. That seems to be a theme. There's a ton of Adams at sunhacks. It's a good name. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for coming. I believe that is my time. Oh, Austin's back. Thanks, Austin. Yeah, I'll hand it back over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for a great workshop, Adam. I think we all learned a lot. It was a really great presentation and really well done. So thank you so much for taking the time to come out here and hack with us this evening. That was great, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
See you around.
One.